Cheers, everyone. Hope everybody's having a great Wednesday. Mine has been somewhat frustrating, to say the least. First of all, I had intended on doing a second day of kayaking until I read that it's going to be very high 90s with a heat index of over 100, and then thunderstorms later this afternoon, and there's no way I'm going out on the lake or a river with heat index over 100. Well, on top of that, I had a case of wine that was scheduled to be delivered, and of course wine requires that it has to be signed for. So it comes via FedEx, and they usually give me a window. Usually the window's either 9 in the morning to 9 in the morning to 2 in the afternoon, or it's 1 in the afternoon until 4 in the evening. So I got a message that said that my wine was out for delivery and that it was scheduled to be here between 9:10 this morning and 1:10 this afternoon. It is now after 4 o'clock and no wine. So I have been held hostage all day long. I had decided that since I wasn't going to go kayaking, I was going to go and buy a wooden medicine cabinet to install in my hallway bathroom, since I'm renovating the hallway bathroom, but obviously I couldn't leave. So I'm still being held hostage. So not only do we have to fight the possibility of a slow connection and losing the signal, which is standard for every podcast, I might also get interrupted with a wine delivery. All right, before we start, we're going to, by the way, we're going to taste a red tonight. We're going to taste a Cabernet Sauvignon. I had posted on the page, I had asked people if they wanted to do a white or a red tonight, and David Bartolo suggested that I do a red, so we are going to do a red as per David's suggestion. But before I do that, I want to talk a little bit about tasting again. I really want to do a separate podcast on tasting, on the actual flavors of tasting, but I'm going to throw it out here early anyway. On your tongue, there's only 4 sensations, 4 tastes that the human brain recognizes. This is on the tongue now, mind you. Your tongue will taste sweetness, sourness, bitterness, and saltiness, and no other tastes. Those are the only 4 tastes that are picked up on your palate by your tongue. Now, other tastes that you get, and there are literally hundreds of other tastes, those tastes are illusionary taste is a better term to use. In other words, you get them from the aroma. Everybody knows what leather smells like. Everybody knows what tobacco smells like. Everybody knows what wet earth smells like. You'll often taste the wine, and it'll have the standard, one of the 4 standards, bitterness, saltiness, or whatever. But we also say that it tastes like leather, or it tastes like tobacco, or whatever the case may be. Those are flavors that are picked up. I see traffic slowing down. Now I'm wondering, this is rush hour on my ridge. I get maybe 15 cars an hour go by. Maybe the FedEx driver was trying to back into my driveway. So we may get interrupted. If we do, I'll continue on with the wine tasting after the fact. All right, so the point I'm trying to make is that on your taste buds, the very tip of your tongue is where you pick up the sweetness on tasting a wine. Now, sourness and acidity is on the sides of the tongue. Bitterness is on the back of the tongue and the top of the tongue, the back top of the tongue, whereas saltiness is on the front and the sides of the tongue. So you really don't need to remember those if you do a tasting properly and you take a mouthful and you actually swish it completely around your mouth. If you completely swish it around your mouth, you're getting wine on the top of your tongue, the sides of your tongue, the underneath side of your tongue, the tip of your tongue, and the back of your tongue. So you're going to pick up all of the flavor points that your tongue has to offer. Now again, we say a wine tastes like blackberry. There is no such flavor as blackberry on your tongue, but we know what blackberry smells like. Many times we've eaten blackberries, and when we eat blackberries, it has a flavor to it. So when we taste a wine and it says that it has blackberry notes on the taste, it's really not a true taste. Would you say that that is sweetness, sourness, bitterness, or saltiness? It could be a combination of some of those, but the reality of it is you are tasting with your brain on that. Yes, your tongue is picking up these flavors, but again, it has to fit into one of those four flavors for the tongue to even register, unless it's being picked up from the brain. Okay, let's get into the wine tasting, and I do keep seeing this silly ass slow connection popping up here. We're going to do a Copper Valley Cabernet Sauvignon today. This is a very inexpensive, $8 to $15 is the going price for a Chilean Cabernet Sauvignon. It is from Chile. It's from the Central Valley in Chile. You might have noticed that yesterday I did a podcast on wine, upcoming wine regions, and I think I may have done one on Chile. I'm not sure of an upcoming region in Chile. But anyway, this is a Copper Valley Cabernet Sauvignon 2022 vintage, and it's from the Central Valley in Chile. It runs about $8 to $15. This wine is available pretty much anywhere. All of your supermarkets should carry. The other thing about it, most of your wines from the Chilean Central Valley, your Cabernet Sauvignons from the Central Valley, they're all going to have very similar taste because the terroir, which is the dirt and the other climatic impacts on your wine, are pretty much the same for the entire wine region. Again, this wine is 12.5% alcohol by volume, which is, now that's standard. Of course, 30 years ago, that would have been high. All right, well, let me look at the wine and see what we got here. I just poured it. I haven't sniffed it, tasted it, or anything else, and I don't think I've had this wine before. I will tell you that the color is good. It's actually maybe just a tad bit light for a Cabernet Sauvignon that I'm used to, which would indicate a couple of things. It could indicate that during the maceration, which is when the skins are still on the juice, this winemaker did not leave the skins in the juice, which becomes wine as long as some of the others. So therefore, the color is not quite as deep. It's certainly not as dark as a Syrah or a dark wine of that nature. But it is dark, it is red, and it's got a ruby-colored red, actually, and the rim of the wine in the glass shows that it's a light pinkish-colored thing. A light pinkish-colored tint to the ring or the rim around the inside of the glass. Again, it's a little bit lighter than you would normally expect from a Cabernet Sauvignon. That doesn't mean it's going to affect taste or quality or anything else. Doesn't seem to have extremely good legs. I read some more on legs today in another wine book about the viscosity and how well the legs indicate how much alcohol's in a wine. This has not very good legs, to be honest with you. Well, I guess it does. I wasn't holding it up far enough to see. The legs seem to be a little slower, which would indicate that the viscosity is a little bit heavier, so perhaps the alcohol is more than I realized. Well, I guess it would be if it's 12.5% by volume. Let's give the sniffing taste and see what we get. It's a standard red fruit, or black fruit, I should say, red wine, like all cabs for the most part. It's got the standard blackberry. It's got plum in there. And I'm picking up a few other little tiny nuances on the nose. Let me see what else I can pick up. Definitely blackberry and plum, and there's a very good hint of spices. I mentioned this the other day on a red wine we tasted. If you open your spice cabinet, you don't pick up one particular spice if you've got 50 or 60 spices in there. You just get an overall aroma of spice. That's showing through on this also. It's hidden by the blackberry. The blackberry is very dominant in this, or dark fruits. We use blackberry as a euphemism for black fruits. It could be black cherries, but generally it's the blackberry that you're smelling. And there is plum in this one, which is pretty nice. Everybody knows what a plum smells like. So the aroma on this wine is exceptionally good. I'm going to give it a taste here and see what we get. The first thing that hit me was tannins. There is definitely tannins in this wine. It is somewhat tannic. I still am getting a little bit of the bitterness from the tannins. This wine has what is called a long finish, which means it hangs in your mouth long after you've swallowed it. And even now, I'm probably 20, 30 seconds after swallowing, and I'm still tasting a little bit of the astringent taste of tannins. It's not bad. I'm not saying that that's wrong or it's bad. I'm just indicating that it has a long finish. Let me try to pick up the nuances of the actual flavors in this wine. It's dark fruit. It's blackberry. There might even be a very faint hint of chocolate in there. I don't want to say dark chocolate, which I enjoy, but more of a cocoa taste of chocolate. That's kind of interesting. I hadn't picked that up in wines recently. Let's try it, see if I can pick it up again. There's the dark fruit, the blackberry, and there is definitely a cocoa nuance to that. That particular mouthful was the third mouthful I had taken, and it was a very tiny mouthful. I wanted to really pull the flavors out of it by holding it in my mouth. The finish is very long. It's got a nice long taste. It is somewhat tannic, and I think that even though it's a 2022, it would probably be okay for another 2 or 3 years in the bottle. It might allow some of the fruit to explode a little bit more and soften those tannins a little bit. But it's a drinkable wine. Don't misunderstand that. We've had very few that we have said are probably not drinkable. This is a good wine. Well, you got to remember now, this is an $8 to $10 bottle of wine, $15 at the top end. So you can't expect the wine to be like a $35 bottle of Murphy Good or something like that. It's got a long finish, which is good. This wine would go good with hamburgers, I'm thinking. Hamburgers or bacon cheeseburgers, oh yeah, something like that. It would go good with. This wine would go good with meatloaf. I think this wine would also go good with barbecue spare ribs, or even barbecue beef. Generally it takes a Zinfandel to pull those flavors out of the food. I think with the astringency in this wine, I think that you could pull some of those flavors of barbecue out, and this wine would complement them. And actually, I would the more I think about it, the more I suspect that a barbecue would actually be a better match for this wine because it would help soften some of the tannins. It's a good wine. It's certainly well worth buying. I'm quite pleased with it. I don't know how many more bottles I have down there. I'm assuming I have a couple of more bottles at least. So again, even if you can't find Copper Valley, look for an inexpensive Chilean means from Chile, of course, Cabernet Sauvignon. Read the label, get something that's from the Central Valley, and get something that's in the low end of the price point. $8 to $10, $12 max. And if it's from Chile and it's a Cabernet Sauvignon and it's at that price point, and I will almost guarantee you it's probably going to taste identical to this wine. So it doesn't necessarily have to be a Copper Valley. That just happens to be the winery that I'm tasting. I would say any other wineries in the area, they're going to taste the same. Well, listen, I want to thank you, and my wine still hasn't come, which I'm assuming it will not come today. And so the only thing that I will say that's fortunate is I have established a relationship with the FedEx driver. And if it's my regular FedEx driver, if I'm not here, he has a little piece of paper in his wallet that has my birthday on it. And so he signs for me for my case of wine, and he slips it underneath of the one of the benches on the front porch. So I'm not really going to worry about it too much. The temperatures tomorrow are going to be hot, but I don't plan on being gone more than an hour at any given time. So I'm not going to allow the wine to hold me hostage again tomorrow. I'm going to go to Lowe's and I'm going to get the medicine cabinet, and I might start thinking about doing the wine cellar floor. I talked about that a while back, that I want to put rocks down on the wine cellar floor. So anyway, I just wanted to pass that bit of information on, and that hopefully if he doesn't show up tonight, and I suspect it's probably not Craig, my regular driver, because I think he would have messaged me if he said, hey, I've got my truck broke down and I'm not going to make it today. He's been very good about that. So I suspect that it's a substitute driver and he probably got lost, or his GPS isn't working, or whatever the case is. All right, well, listen, everybody. Thank you, David. Thank you for the suggestion for a red wine. I hope that you pop on later, David, and along with the beautiful wife, Cindy, that you watch this podcast and check out the Copper Valley Cabernet Sauvignon 2022. All right, everyone. I will see you the next time around. Take care now. Bye.